Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions for, and anybody on the panel can answer. In reference to this bill being a back door, is this bill a back door?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is very clear. It does what it says, and it says what it does, and it is basically to take the definition of medical emergency in the Human Life Protection Act, which was passed in 2021, and transfer that into the other three major abortion laws so that doctors know. The exception, of course, is the critical function in all of these. Doctors know exactly what language to look at. With respect to the 1925 law, is actually passed in 1854. And never were women prosecuted under that law, successfully prosecuted in Texas. Never were they. There's some other speakers that will make that point. Never were they. And we would never expect, it hasn't, no woman has been prosecuted since Dobbs. The Attorney General says that law is in effect. No woman has been prosecuted. We have no reason to believe that anyone would be. The Court of Criminal Appeals has numerous decisions that said that law cannot be used to prosecute women on whom abortions are performed. So that is very clear. So it is simply about making sure doctors know exactly what language to look for when determining in reasonable medical judgment whether the woman has the pregnancy imposes a serious risk of death. Risk of death is still in the law. Risk of death is still in law, or the pregnancy poses a serious risk of substantial impairment of major bodily function. We have other states with virtually the same law, with virtually the same reporting rates as you see here. So that language is not being abused in any other state that has similar laws to this exception that this bill has. That's why we believe this is a very good bill.
Okay, and so you had mentioned, I'm still talking. You had mentioned one case, I believe, this Zarowski, and we're talking about this language now, threat of life, death, whatever. But before I go back to that, it's amazing that we've gotten everybody here together and we're on the same page. So the question is, what was in the bill that you guys didn't like? That all of a sudden now we can agree.
You mean the original draft of this bill or the original law?
Yeah, the original draft of this bill.
Well, that's not before the committee today, so.
Well, I'm just trying to put it together because the question is coming up because we're talking about language, and there was a hearing, I believe, on the 27th that said that we should not be using this language. We should not be referencing this law that I'm looking at here, Texas v. Zarowski. So, and undoubtedly, it brought it together, and now we've got HB44, which I'm in favor of too, but I'm just asking the question. It's asked and answered.
Representative, thank you. So this is a negotiated bill, and negotiations are continuing. Even Friday afternoon,
That's the answer I wanted to know. Then
groups that were sending amendment language, and obviously Senator Hughes is quarterback on the other side of the building, and he's getting amendments from members and organizations. So this is very much a work in progress, and I think this hearing shows these are critical issues, and there's a lot of important questions that need to be answered.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Can I
Mr.
add
Chairman.
to that, though? As it's a work in progress, we all committed to working on it together. And so as amendments are brought, the agreement is that all of the organizations that Lisa Kaufman outlined would have to agree to those amendments so that it remains a common ground bill to protect the life of the mother. We don't want this bill hijacked for either side's agenda. Mm-hmm. This bill is supposed to be to protect moms because that is our common ground.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Bucy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate what you just said, the common ground bill, and that's what we're dealing with here. And I've heard from all four of you that you think what we're doing is clarifying the law to make sure the life of the woman is protected. Is that correct? Anybody disagree with
Correct.
that? And not inherently changing the law, and we've had a debate here about who's responsible for the confusion, but we all agree that we are doing this to create clarification under current interpretation of law.
Correct.
Yeah.
Everybody. If somebody doesn't, I'd love to hear it. In addition, for intent, and you just talked about, sir, about no one's ever been gone after the women and prosecuted, and I appreciate that. We want to make sure that doesn't happen And also, I think to Representative Johnson's point and some of the questioning earlier that I didn't hear a clear answer on, what about the immediate family that is helping them? Are we making sure we're not going after them as well? And so I'm just curious if anyone feels that we should be doing that or that we shouldn't be doing that, and if you think that's clear or needs clarification. Anyone on the panel?
With Texas Lines for Life's approach is that it is not legally possible for someone to help another individual to have an abortion within Texas because of the Human Life Protection Act and these other statutes. In terms of out-of-state abortions, Justice Kavanaugh, in the concurring opinion in Dobbs, did say that his belief, and probably there's at least other 4 judges who would agree with this, his belief is the Constitution principle of interstate travel does not means that we cannot prevent individuals from going out of state for abortions in a state where it's legal, like the gambling analogy. So now, as far as helping, that's not been decided by the courts and by the U.S. Supreme Court. There was an opinion out of Alabama in which a federal district judge did say that Alabama may not prevent someone from helping an individual go to another state for an abortion. That was one federal district judge. I can get you that opinion if you want. It hasn't been decided more broadly than that.
Well, and I think to Representative Johnson's point, we're talking about potentially the idea of a grandmother or a mother helping their teenage daughter who we can't expect to be able to go out of state.
I don't think anybody will be able to say that a parent or a guardian can prevent someone from going out of state for an abortion. But again, the courts haven't addressed those yet.
But it's not y'all's intent to try to say otherwise.
Not Texas Lines for Life.
Anybody else feel different on the panel?
Not through this legislation.
Yeah, not through
Not through this This bill just addresses the clarity on what pro-life laws allow. This is not to restrict anybody or add any enforcement tools.
And you don't think this bill, through this clarification, would change anything currently under the law otherwise that could restrict that?
No, sir, absolutely not.
Everybody
This bill
agrees.
does not.
No.
Mr. Siegel, you agree with that?
I mean, no, there's an ongoing lawsuit right now about
Sure.
the validity of that bill. That's going to be settled. This may help the state in that case to reiterate that every session, I mean, but they've already, that doesn't really help them. They've already argued just 2 sessions ago that law is valid. So this argument doesn't really change.
Your intent in supporting this bill is not tied to that.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.